towns up and down the country, maybe littered with barber shops with no customers, and there's the American candy stores that no one asked for as well. But HMRC have clearly got other priorities because they've launched a crackdown on inheritance tax avoidance. The number of families being investigated for underpaying IHT has jumped by a third in just 1 year, and that's as the Treasury becomes more and more desperate for revenue. Well, perhaps unsurprisingly, Lewis Goodall of LBC believes that anyone who doesn't want to hand over their hard-earned money to Rachel Reeves is a problem.
It's my mum's house, my dad's house, and they paid for it over the years.
But you didn't. It's their house, not yours. It's theirs. It's not yours.
And they can hand it to me.
Well, yes, I'm sure that would be terribly convenient to you. That is that you are exactly the problem here. You are saying you're afraid so, Trevor. I'm afraid so, because what you're saying is that you're saying, look, your mum and dad work very hard, and I respect that. I'm sure you work hard as well. But you've got to recognise that younger people work really, really hard, and they might not have someone to give them a house.
Oh, make it end. Tonight we're asking, is it entitled, as per Lewis Goodall, to push back against inheritance tax? Well, I'm joined now by the head of the Taxpayers Alliance, Elliot Keck, and the former editor of Labour List, Peter Edwards. Good evening, chaps. Thank you for your company. Peter, I'll start with you first. Why should somebody who has worked all their lives, they've paid tax on their income, they've then grafted to, say, for example, purchase a house which they imagine or dream of handing over to their children one day, why should the legalised mafia government come along and then swipe 40% of it?
I think it's absolutely crackers to call it legalised mafia. That's absurd. First of all, we've all got to follow the rules, you know, left or right. We all have to follow the rules. Secondly, most estates don't pay inheritance tax. The proportion of estates that pay IHT is pretty small. It's well under a third from memory. And for a couple who are married or in a civil partnership who have a property, nothing will be paid on the first £1 million anyway. The allowance is enormous. In most people's money, including mine and your viewers, £1 million is a lot of money. That's tax-free on the estate. Where there's tax avoidance, it's completely right. The HMRC goes after it. Completely right.
So just remind us of the threshold. So it's 450, isn't it, as a single person?
No, it's 325 ordinarily, and then there's 175 for housing. For a single person, it's about 500. David Cameron changed the law on that basis. So if you're married or in a civil partnership, it's 500 each. Basically, how the coalition left it was £1 million for a couple with a property. Well,
I mean, in this day and age, especially in the South East, that's just one property. £1 million is probably one, you know, fairly decent-sized house. Elliot, regardless of the thresholds and who's affected by it, why should the state, why should the government come along and pick people's pockets like that?
I think you're absolutely right to call it a legalised mafia. I don't think that is overkill. We are talking about money seized from a family at the end of the gun, and that's what it is. If you don't pay up, you go to prison. And inheritance tax is one of the most complicated taxes in the United Kingdom. Over 1,000 pages is inheritance tax in the UK's tax code. It's unbelievably complex, and we have grieving families that may, in many cases, just have made a mistake, got a couple of things wrong, treated one exemption, inappropriately or incorrectly. And as a result, you have these HMRC investigations that we know are incredibly cruel, incredibly capricious. We know that people commit suicide as a result of these HMRC investigations. It's an absolutely appalling thing to see. It's a nasty little organisation filled with curtain-twitching, petty authoritarian malevolence, and it's absolutely disgusting. I think HMRC should hang their heads in shame.
Peter, what do you make of that? You agree?
Well, I think mental health is clearly a crisis for anyone, and it's horrifying for any family it affects. But I just don't accept it at all. I think we all have to play by the rules. And
yeah, but Peter, sorry to interrupt. You've said that twice now. We have to play by the rules. Sometimes the rules are bent. Sometimes the rules are insane. Just look at COVID. They're telling you to walk around 6 feet from each other with no scientific evidence. Sometimes the rules just clearly don't make sense.
COVID.
No, but I'm saying just because it's the rules, Peter, it doesn't mean that it should be allowed to continue if it doesn't make sense.
OK, well, let me give you another motivation that for close on a century, every government that's been elected, Liberal, Labour or Tory, has been on the basis of retaining IHT. So the public has again voted for a party that believes in IHT.
OK, good point, Elliot. Fair point.
Well, the public have also voted time and time again for parties that say they were going to cut immigration. Inheritance tax routinely polls, and we polled it just recently, and every single time it's polled, it's revealed to be the most hated tax in the United Kingdom. Every single group that we polled, including Green Party voters, then said that they'd prefer to see inheritance tax cut or abolished over
£9
being
billion.
increased. £9 billion is what it's raised. It's not much money, given the government raises about £1 trillion every year. And we talk about people not abiding by the rules. People don't know the rules. They hire tax accountants that spend their whole career learning the rules about inheritance tax, and yet they still get these things wrong. We have to remember that when you receive your estate, it normally takes about a year to receive probate. That's basically the right to sell off your family's, your father's, mother's, whatever it is, their estate. It's only 6 months, at which point interest starts coming in. So you don't even get the right to sell the estate to pay your inheritance tax bill before the interest kicks in. It's a horrible tax enforced by horrible people.
Okay,
but £9 billion for public services. If we're cutting IHT, £9 billion. Are we having £9 billion worth of spending cuts, or is there going to be another tax levied on top?
I'll tell you what you could do, Peter. You could stop sending £11.5 billion in climate aid to foreign countries. You could stop illegal migration with asylum hotels. You could stop the £22 billion. You could stop the £22 billion carbon capture scheme that even eco-zealots and eco-haters alike don't like. You could stop giving away the Chagos Islands and paying for the privilege. You could do all sorts, Peter. One thing I recommend you don't do is...
See if people support that.
Well, give it 3 years, give it 4 years. Peter Edwards, thank you very much, former editor of Labour List and the head of the Taxpayers Alliance, Elliot Keck. Thank you both.